The story begins on a quiet summer evening in a small town in Texas, where Emily Parker had been living a seemingly perfect life with her husband, Daniel. Daniel came from a strong, tight-knit family, and his younger brother, Michael, had always been around. Michael was just a few years younger than Daniel, and he often visited their home, sometimes staying for dinner or helping Daniel with work around the ranch that had been in their family for generations. Emily had always admired the Parker family's bond. She came from a broken home herself, where love had been scarce and arguments constant, so being welcomed into their world felt like she had finally been given the stability she longed for. Daniel was steady, dependable, the kind of man who worked hard from dawn until dusk, and Emily respected him deeply for it. Yet, there was something about Michael that unsettled her in ways she didn't want to admit, not even to herself. Michael was charming, playful, and often teased Emily in ways Daniel never did. While Daniel was practical and serious, Michael was free-spirited, the kind of man who would take spontaneous road trips or show up with a guitar and sing old country songs under the stars. Emily told herself she only enjoyed Michael's company because he reminded her of the youthfulness she had lost somewhere along the way, but deep down, she knew there was more to it than that. The night that would change everything started innocently enough. Daniel had been called away unexpectedly for work. He managed a section of the ranch that sometimes required him to travel overnight to another part of the county when problems arose. That evening, Emily had been preparing dinner when Michael stopped by. He said Daniel had told him he'd be gone, but he thought he'd check in to make sure Emily wasn't lonely. At first, Emily laughed it off. "Michael, I'm fine. You don't have to babysit me." He grinned, leaning against the kitchen counter, his dark hair falling slightly into his eyes. "I'm not babysitting. Just thought maybe we could hang out. Besides, I know Daniel would feel better knowing I was here." She tried to ignore the flutter of nerves in her chest as she set the table for two. Michael helped, and soon they were eating together, talking the way they always did. But as the night wore on, the house felt smaller, the air heavier. Emily noticed things she had ignored before. The way Michael's gaze lingered a second too long, the casual touches on her arm when he laughed, the nearness of him when he stood behind her to reach for something on the shelf. After dinner, they sat in the living room. A storm had rolled in, rain tapping against the windows, thunder rumbling in the distance. Michael picked up Daniel's old guitar, strumming softly. His voice was low, soulful, filling the room with an intimacy that made Emily's heart ache. "You've got a beautiful voice," she whispered without thinking. He looked up at her, his eyes catching hers in a way that made her forget to breathe. "Thanks, Sam. Means a lot coming from you." They sat in silence for a moment, the storm outside echoing the turmoil inside her. She knew she should send him home, that nothing good could come from this closeness. But she didn't move. Neither did he. When the thunder cracked loudly overhead, Emily startled, and Michael laughed gently, reaching out to steady her hand. That simple touch was enough to unleash everything they had both been holding back, though neither wanted to admit it outright. "I should probably go," Michael finally said, his voice strained, though he didn't let go of her hand. "Maybe you should," Emily whispered, but she didn't pull away. That night was the beginning of a dangerous secret that would haunt Emily for years. She didn't cross a line physically, but emotionally, she knew she had betrayed her husband in ways that were harder to forgive. Being alone in that room with both Daniel and Michael on her mind tore at her heart, because she realized she was living a lie. The days that followed only deepened the cracks. Daniel returned the next morning, tired but smiling, kissing her on the cheek, as if nothing had changed. Michael kept his distance at first, avoiding her eyes, but the tension between them was unmistakable. Every family gathering, every holiday, every moment they were in the same room, it all carried the weight of that stormy night. Emily tried to convince herself it was just a fleeting weakness, a passing storm of emotions, but secrets have a way of growing roots. And the more she tried to bury the memory, the more it seemed to surface in unexpected ways. Daniel remained oblivious, trusting both his wife and his brother without question. That trust made Emily's guilt almost unbearable. She found herself snapping at small things, unable to sleep at night, her dreams filled with echoes of that guitar, of Michael's eyes in the dim light of the storm. Michael, for his part, struggled too. He avoided being alone with Emily, but whenever they were forced into the same space, the silence between them spoke louder than words. He cared about his brother, and he cared about Emily too, but caring had led them both into dangerous territory. As the months passed, the weight of that night began to take its toll on Emily's marriage. Daniel noticed her distraction, her distant smiles, her restless pacing at night. "Is something wrong, Em?" he would ask gently, his hand brushing her arm. "You've seemed different lately." Emily would shake her head, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." But inside, she was unraveling. The truth of being alone in that room with Michael wasn't just about temptation. It was about realizing how fragile her life truly was. She had built her marriage on loyalty, trust, and love, and yet a single night of weakness had the power to bring it all crashing down. The story of Emily, Daniel, and Michael was not one of scandal played out for the world to see, but one of quiet battles fought in the heart. Emily learned that infidelity doesn't always begin with actions. It begins with thoughts, with emotions, with unspoken moments that grow in the silence between words. And as she sat in her quiet house weeks later, watching Daniel and Michael laugh together in the yard, she felt the sharp sting of truth. Love is not just about choosing someone once. It's about choosing them every single day, even when temptation whispers otherwise. That stormy night had tested her in ways she never imagined, and though she hadn't crossed the final line, she knew she had come far too close. The lesson would stay with her forever, a reminder of how easily trust can be broken and how fiercely it must be protected.